Demon Slayers, Chapter 1, Post-Apocalyptic World. I have seen many things. I have lived many years. I have known many souls. I have been around long enough to experience almost all that life has to offer, both good and bad. But nothing that I have ever seen was worse than what the world had yet to witness. The event which many religions feared finally came. The survivors called it by many names: Judgment Day, Apocalypse, Rapture, Armageddon, End Time, and others. It started with an unexpected eclipse. Then the skies turned red as blood. The dead began to wake to feed on the living. Old and forgotten threats returned from legend, and other threats came out after centuries of hiding. Mankind fought alone, but our weapons were useless. There was no front. The enemy was among us and everywhere. The massacre ended, but the fighting continued. There are survivors, and they live in fear now, for every day can be their last. Only very few have survived, and they survived for sheer luck, since no human was prepared for it. I survived for only one reason. I was prepared. Despite the catastrophe the world has been through, there is still hope for mankind. It all started 5 years after, somewhere in a deserted area in the state of São Paulo, Brazil, west of its capital. What was once a beautiful green landscape with farms and blue sky was now a barren wasteland covered with a thin layer of ashes from the burned vegetation and some dead black trees here and there. Above the wasteland was the red sky with some dark blue clouds. This was the sight expected to see in practically any part of the world in this post-apocalyptic reality. Cutting this wasteland was a paved road still preserved in its original form. Almost every day in the land the only sound that could be heard was that of the wind, but this day there was an unusual sound as well. It was the sound of a motorcycle engine, and it grew fast as it approached. One single large motorcycle for road trips passed at high speed. The motorcycle rider wore a dark brown long trench coat and boots of the same color. His shirt and pants were both black. He had his head wrapped with a piece of light brown cloth, and his eyes were protected by dark goggles. The reason for traveling in such a high speed was not just the absence of law in the post-apocalyptic world, but mostly because the rider was being hunted. Half a kilometer behind him were 3 flying demonic creatures known as incubi. The incubi are male demons with human bodies and huge bat-like wings. These in particular were naked and were bald. They flew quickly in a V-shaped formation. One was fat, the other was small and had a baby-like body, and the leader was a skinny one leading the chase. The 3 had a wide, terrifying smile with sharp teeth on their faces as they were confident of their success. Although they seemed to be closing their distances with the motorcycle, sometimes they would lose the chance to catch it shortly after as the motorcycle sped up. The rider watched them on their retrovisor constantly, so he knew exactly where they were. A few minutes of chase, and the fat one was the first to give up. He still kept flying, but fell far behind his colleagues who kept on flying. The little one was the next to slow down, leaving only the leader chasing the motorcycle. The rider noticed the break in the formation, and that he was now being followed by only one incubus, as the other were far behind. That is what he was waiting for. The motorcycle's speed began slowly decreasing, and the incubus had hopes he would catch him. All of a sudden, the rider just hit the brakes and turned the motorcycle to the right. When it finally stopped, it was on its side, and the creature was coming on the rider's right. In a blink of an eye, the rider pulled a shotgun, which was right in front of him, and aimed at the creature. The demon hardly had the time to react before the rider shot its left wing, disabling it and causing it to fall from 10 meters above the ground into the asphalt. The fall was hard, and other than the disabling wing, the demon had broken bones from the fall. The rider got off the bike and walked to the creature, with the shotgun in his hand, until he stopped half the way when he saw the two others at a distance as they slowly approached. When they saw the rider, they stopped as well and landed on the road, where they just stood watching the rider from the distance. The rider removed the cloth and goggles from his head to see the creatures better, revealing to be a man in his mid-30s, with long dark brown hair tied in a half ponytail and a few scars on his face. For a few minutes he stared seriously at them, and they stared at him. The three of them were waiting for a move. He then lifted his shotgun above his head to show he was armed. After a few more seconds, the two creatures took off and flew away in the direction they came from. The rider lowered his shotgun and proceeded towards the injured demon. The creature was motionless, but still alive and moaning in pain. The rider stopped right next to it and aimed the gun at its head. The creature refused to look at the man, and it kept staring at the horizon. The man proceeded to pump the gun and ask a very brief question. "A big black dragon flew past here this morning. Where did it go?" The incubus understood the question, but it refused to answer, making a low moan, still looking at the horizon. And it turned its head to the rider and looked past the gun into his eyes with an angry expression on its face. The creature's eyes were just like goat eyes, with a rectangular pupil. Then he repeated the sound, but screaming with anger. The creature's scream ended, as well as its life, with the sound of the shotgun going off. With his gun pointing down, the rider looked at the demon's body and, with his left hand free, he removed a white rose from a pocket inside his jacket. After a short pause, looking in the same direction, he dropped the rose near the creature's body and walked away. The mysterious rider walked back to his bike, but not bothered for not getting the answer he wanted, since he expected the demon's response. As he got to the bike, he noticed that something was not right. Being an experienced demon slayer, he could tell he was being watched by something silent standing behind him. He turned very suddenly and pumped his shotgun at the same time he aimed at an old man who was standing outside the road 5 meters behind him. The old man was wearing farm clothes and immediately jumped back with his arms up as he was startled by the rider's quick move. "Whoa, whoa, calm down. I'm not a demon or a zombie." The rider said nothing, but he could tell that the man was harmless. Looking around, he saw a cloak on the ground next to the man, and it was as gray as the ashes that covered the fields. He had no doubt that it was used for camouflage, and it was probably how the man got so close to him without him noticing it. The rider proceeded to withdraw his gun, and he turned back to his bike without saying a word to the stranger. But the stranger did not notice the rider's lack of interest in making friends, so he naively continued talking. "Whoa, you must be tough, right?" There was no response, not even eye contact, as the rider checked his bike before leaving, but the man still continued talking. "I have never seen anyone face a demon before, and you just faced 3 and even killed one, their leader. Of course I've killed zombies before, but who hasn't? They're not very intelligent, right?" There was still silence from the rider, but the man didn't take a hint. "You don't talk much, do you?" The rider sat on his bike and put on his goggles, and the man continued. You know, I have never seen that type of demon around here. I have heard that they scavenge on the remains of dragon kills. I can imagine they were following that one that passed over here earlier. I have also never seen one of those around these. What do you mean dragon? What dragon? The rider said, turning to look at the old man and removing his goggles at the same time. Taken by surprise, the old man paused for a second. Oh, a big black one. Flew by this morning. Where? East. Like he was following the road. It kind of looked like he was heading to São Paulo, but that's impossible. Dragons don't fly near big cities, right? The rider said nothing. He just put his goggles back on and started his bike. You're not going after that thing, are you? The man asked. The rider placed his hands on the handles and spoke his last words to the old man. Thank you. After that, he took off heading east, going after the dragon.